Everybody loves a good clip of someone getting hurt in a comical fashion. Well, Dragon Ball has plenty of moments just like that, where one of our heroes squares off against an enemy only for one or the other to deliver a cheap blow that even the audience can feel. These underhanded moves pushed right to the edge of the boundaries of vicious assaults that could be shown on kids' TV. Well, let's dive right in. Here are the 20 best cheap shots in Dragon Ball history. Dragon Ball fans were pretty happy to see the Saiyans from Universe 6. The Z-Fighter gang has always been a bit on the testosterone-heavy side, so it was pretty cool to see two female Super Saiyans in competition with the likes of Goku and Vegeta. Things got even more interesting when we found out that Kale was a legendary Super Saiyan. She proves herself more than a match for Goku's Super Saiyan form. Kale then pulls out a move from Hulk's Avengers playbook by slapping him on the ground like a rag doll. Now Goku knows how Loki feels. The situation gets even more dire for our heroes when Kale and Caulifla pull a Vegito and combine into Kefla. Luckily, Goku takes this time to use his Ultra Instinct. Kefla blasts Goku with a powerful attack that seemed like the end of the match. Then Goku pulls one of the best all-time cheap shots in Dragon Ball history. He summons up a Kamehameha wave and somehow uses it to ride up her blast, dodging the whole thing. Then he fires it right in her face. The move's so dirty that the show itself replays it 3 times. All it's missing is Jerry Lawler giving commentary on how amazing that shot is. My God, she has a family. The arrival of Raditz and the threat of Saiyan invasion was quite the shakeup for the old Dragon Ball heroes. The original anime characters all trained harder than they ever had before. Without Goku alive to save him, Yamcha, Tien, and the gang vowed to rise to the occasion and defeat Vegeta and Nappa. Good thing Goku came back from the afterlife because they did not quite cut it. Things start out pretty well for our gang. Yamcha takes on one of the Saiyan's henchmen, the Cybermen. He makes pretty quick work of the little guy, proving that his time training was well worth it. It was a pretty proud 30 seconds at least. The creature then grabs Yamcha and self-destructs, leaving the hero a smoldering corpse. It's probably the most famous cheap shot in all of Dragon Ball history. Yamcha went from being one of the main secondary characters to the guy who had to be avenged by Krillin. Is there anything sadder than that? There was one cheap shot that Krillin endured that was so bad that it led to one of Dragon Ball Z's most pivotal moments. Krillin launched a surprisingly awesome move on Frieza, managing to slice off his tail with a well-timed Destructo Disc. This move ended up only serving to bring him to Frieza's attention though. In one of the cruelest moments in the entire franchise, Frieza took control of Krillin's body and then destroyed it with little to no effort. This cruelty backfired on Frieza by serving as the primary motivation for Goku going full Super Saiyan for the first time. One would think that Frieza would regret the move, but chances are he'd do it all over again if he had the chance. No one really takes the pleasure out of cheap shots like Frieza does. To him, they're as comforting as warm soup on a rainy Sunday afternoon. Goku's naivete is incredibly evident when he gets taken out of a fight in one of the most embarrassing moves of the entire franchise. While fighting the resurrected Frieza, Goku lets his guard down and reverts to his base form once he thinks Frieza has been outmatched. That is when Frieza's minion, Sorbet, reveals himself from the shadows. He fires a simple laser at Goku, which takes the Saiyan down. Frieza then laughs over him, praising himself for exploiting Goku's stupidity. While this scene is one of Goku's most shameful moments, it's actually one of Frieza's greatest. It shows how even though Goku and Vegeta have long overpowered him, he's still the greatest villain in the series. He is an expert on the weaknesses of our heroes and how to exploit them. Frieza is the Mozart of sneaky moves and underhanded plots. If only he could see that, maybe he wouldn't be so insecure about his height. There's perhaps no greater upset than the time Vegeta took on Android 18. The arrogant Saiyan Prince seemed extremely excited to get to display the full power of his Super Saiyan form. The early moments of the fight seemed like it would go in his favor as well. Turns out that 18 was just letting him attack until he exhausted himself. As an android, 18's energy did not fade, while Vegeta used his up with arrogant intensity. This led to one of the series' most brutal beatdowns. The final move of this volley was 18 kicking Vegeta's arm so hard that it bent the wrong way. She broke his arm so badly that his wrist hung backwards on the end of his worthless limb. Even for a show like DBZ, that's pretty grisly, baby. After he suffered a humiliating defeat on Namek, Frieza prepared to make an epic comeback. His father, King Cold, rebuilt him in a very Darth Vader-esque attempt to make him the galaxy's fiercest cyborg. If you watched the original Toonami run of Dragon Ball Z, the network hyped it up as one of the most epic events in the franchise. The commercials made it seem like Frieza was going to get his revenge. Well, we got played, but so did Frieza. There was a different Saiyan who threw a wrench in Frieza's plans this time. A monkey wrench. Future Trunks made his Dragon Ball Z debut in the most epic fashion possible. He flew down at Mecha Frieza in full Super Saiyan form and cut him into pieces, just like a pizza. Trunks essentially ended what would have been another amazing Frieza arc in one cunning move. It still remains one of the greatest moments in Dragon Ball history. Trunks was every anime fan's favorite character instantly. Frieza still hasn't gotten vengeance for the epic defeat. He probably never will. So how did Raditz first prove himself to be a formidable foe? Why, the same way most villains in the series like to, by beating up Krillin. You see, Raditz disrupted a perfectly pleasant day at Kame House with news that Goku was an alien, and that he was going to conquer the Earth. Honestly, not an abnormal day at Kame House if you think about it. Our heroes weren't super pleased by this interruption. Egos had been pretty high ever since Goku defeated Piccolo. The entire gang had gone through an extended era of peace, and were riding high on that feeling. So Krillin thought it was a good idea to saunter on over to this fierce warrior and tell him to leave the planet. Raditz responded by smacking Krillin with his tail so hard that Krillin smashed through the house. You'd think that Krillin would start seeing those smackdowns coming. He's only suffered through dozens of them. Duck and roll, little buddy. Just duck and roll. Tien and Yamcha have become pretty close friends over the years. One could imagine that they probably meet at a bar on a weekly basis and commiserate about the days when they were more important characters. There's probably one topic that they don't talk about though, and it's that one time that Tien shattered Yamcha's leg. During one of the Dragon Ball tournaments, Tien was matched up against Yamcha. It was one of the best matches in the tournament. While Tien ultimately proved himself to be stronger, Yamcha was quite the competitor. Tien ultimately deflected Yamcha's energy blast and managed to kick Yamcha so hard that it basically ended the match. If only to add insult to injury, or maybe even injury to insult, Tien viciously attacked his downed opponent. He dives down towards Yamcha and breaks his leg right above the knee. Yeesh. Sure, the two managed to become buddies after the match, but the injury probably still causes Yamcha some pain. Not as much pain as it did when Bulma dumped him for Vegeta though, but boom! It's kinda hard to be a Dragon Ball villain. Jiren's vicious assault on Team Universe 7 was probably the most intense confrontation since the original Frieza saga. Goku even had to master the Ultra Instinct just to match him. Before that though, he proved his power by roughing up Vegeta like it was a standard part of Jiren's workout routine. He threw those punches so hard that Vegeta even claimed that his bones were shattering. This is even more brutal when you realize that Jiren was holding back. The warrior could have ended it in one blow. He was literally hitting Vegeta just hard enough that he would still be standing for more punishment. Say what you will about Vegeta, but after enduring that much injury, the Prince of All Saiyans still stood for more. He can break his body, but his pride, it's pretty indestructible. One of the main reasons King Piccolo is so revered in the pantheon of the original anime's enemies is his first fight with Goku. To this day, it's one of the fiercest beatdowns he's ever received. Goku had made quite a name for himself taking on the Red Ribbon Army and competing in tournaments. Lord Piccolo was the first anime to serve as a proper antagonist to push against our young hero. Despite his extreme age and decrepit appearance, Piccolo swatted Goku around with impressive speed and powerful energy blasts. Things got really cheap when Piccolo picked up Goku by the scruff of his neck and punched him in the face. Then he twisted his knuckles into the young boy's bleeding nose. The whole thing eventually ended with Goku left an unconscious, smoldering mess. Luckily, Goku was able to get his own revenge by punching straight through Piccolo's chest in what is honestly another one of the show's best moves. Piccolo Jr. and Goku may be close friends now, but there's no forgetting how epic the first Piccolo encounters were. Things took a most unexpected turn for Vegeta when Zarbon revealed his secondary form. While he walks around like a blue supermodel most of the day, his final form is pretty monstrous. He basically lives his life with a Snapchat filter turned on. While this form is much uglier, it's also a lot more powerful. The fact that Vegeta had to learn the hard way. This all culminated when Zarbon grappled Vegeta mid-air. Then he zoomed towards the ground at high speed as Vegeta screamed in desperation. He slammed Vegeta down so hard that he figured the Saiyan was done for. If Vegeta was, the entire saga might have ended differently. Zarbon could be sipping tea at his immortal master's right side right now. That serves as a valuable lesson. If you're gonna destroy your foe with a brutal finishing move, check to make sure that they aren't still breathing afterwards. Their rematch definitely doesn't go by Zarbon's playbook. His supposedly unbeatable final form is no match for Vegeta's newfound power-up. They trade blows, but Vegeta laughs as he slowly pounds Zarbon's armor away. To finish things off, Vegeta punches through Zarbon's abdomen. Sure, he could have ended things right there, but this time Krillin and Bulma were watching. If there's one thing a dramatic guy like Vegeta loves, it's an audience. The Saiyan Prince smiles as he summons a massive amount of energy to his hand and completely obliterates Zarbon's torso. One can imagine that when the planet Namek inevitably exploded, Zarbon still had that stupid look of surprise on his alligator face. Frieza and King Cold ruled over the Saiyan race for quite some time. Then the rumor around the old intergalactic water cooler was that there would one day be a Super Saiyan who would overthrow them. So the two of them decided to do a lot of research into this and decide the most reasonable outcome. Just kidding. They decided to go straight for genocide. The evil despot actually cackled as he summoned a massive amount of energy to the tip of his finger and then used it to wipe out the planet. Even by Dragon Ball standards, it's a pretty brutal scene. He even does it again when faced with defeat on Earth. Destroying planets is basically like his Piano Man. Sure, some people like Frieza's new stuff, but when you see him live, you really want to see him play Piano Man. Vegeta really screwed up against Cell. When they began, Cell was still in his imperfect form. Cell, however, was born with knowledge of all the Z fighters. He knew all about Vegeta's patented arrogance. So he convinces Vegeta to let him achieve his final form first. Sadly, Vegeta took the bait and found himself against the entire saga's final boss while he was on a much lower level. Perfect Cell swatted him around with ease, but that's not how he ended it. You see, the thing about Vegeta is that he's so arrogant that it just makes villains want to humiliate him in the most brutal way possible. So, Cell decided to end their fight by kicking Vegeta in the air, only to fly above him and slam his elbow into the poor man's spine. He basically did a reverse version of what Bane did to Batman in The Dark Knight Rises. Maybe Vegeta did an intense ropes course to recover in the hyperbolic time chamber like Bruce Wayne did. Goten and Trunks were eager to get in on the action during the Buu saga. Unfortunately, they weren't quite powerful enough to make a real difference. That is, until they combined together to form Gotenks. Their first time taking on Majin Buu was a disaster. The evil pink puffball was able to take down the fused Saiyans with little effort. When they fused a second time though, this time as Super Saiyans, the resulting fused hero was much more powerful. He was able to take on the evil Majin Buu with style. Part of this style showed itself through Gotenks' ghost attack. He sent little ghost beings at Buu that crowded the monster and blew him to pieces, leaving him grotesquely injured. Had he not been so powerful, that would have been the end of the entire saga right there. Buu did end up getting his revenge in the grossest possible way when he turned Gotenks into chocolate and ate him up. That's a candy bar with 2 times the Saiyan Crunch. During the Tournament of Power, one of the most interesting characters introduced was Frieza's doppelganger, Frost. While Frieza is known far and wide as the most vile person in the multiverse, Frost seemed like a pretty nice guy. Well, looks can be deceiving. In his match against Goku, our hero was surprisingly incapacitated. At first, it seemed like Frost had an awesome signature move up his sleeve. Well, apparently that move was called lying. He snuck in a poison to the tournament and used it on Goku. Yeah, that's right. Friezas of all universes are just underhanded jerks. There are a lot of rude things that you can do in a match, but perhaps nothing is worse than straight up eating your opponent. Evidently, Cell is not a big fan of sportsmanship. In his efforts to achieve his perfect form, Cell found one of his most desired targets. Piccolo and 17 both tried their best to repel the monster, but Cell was ultimately too much for them. He snuck behind 17 and sucked him into his tail like a penny into a vacuum cleaner. The worst part is that Piccolo had to stand there and watch as the last important match he'd ever have in the franchise ended in complete failure. Goku has a reputation of being one of the most unstoppable heroes in all of anime. Well, unstoppable as long as you don't cheat. Unfortunately, that's exactly what the sneaky Captain Ginyu did when they faced off against each other. At this point, Goku was making his way through the Ginyu Force without a lot of effort. Once Ginyu faced him, it was pretty clear he did not stand a chance. That is, until he used his special move to switch bodies with a Saiyan hero in one of Dragon Ball's sneakiest moves. Luckily, he got his comeuppance when he got transferred into a frog body. Not even a cute little Kermit one either. If you haven't kept up with the Dragon Ball Super manga, you probably aren't familiar with Planet Eater Moro. The escaped prisoner is an evil wizard who's made a name for himself by being able to nullify Vegeta and Goku's Super Saiyan forms. He's also become pretty famous for what he did to the Super Namekian. This warrior was a much-hyped hero tasked with taking on the new big bad. He was the greatest of all Namekians, but that title didn't last very long. Moro ends the fight quickly by pushing his arm all the way through the Namekian's chest without even looking. Even for Dragon Ball, that's pretty cold. Not you, King Cold, you stay out of this. Nappa and Vegeta have a tense relationship. You'd think that being two of the last Saiyans alive would make them close. Vegeta proved that that was not the case when he blew Nappa up after he lost to Goku. The two got a reunion in Dragon Ball GT where Nappa had a chance to get revenge. Vegeta's opinion of his old friend had not changed much over the years. He blew him up again without so much as a thought to the contrary. Aren't Saiyan friendships sweet? And there you have it, Dragon Ball's 20 best cheap shots. Which one do you think was the most brutal? Goku's Kefla takedown? 18 breaking Vegeta's arm? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.